Hi guys, this is Nada from Techtesters and welcome to our channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the brand new case from Be Quiet, the Silent Bass 601. The Silent Bass 601 is the younger brother of the Silent Bass 600 case. That was a mid-tower case that came out in 2015. And even though they share the same name, after 3 years of innovations built in and some different design choices, these two cases actually have very little in common. Now, the Be Quiet Silent Bass 601 comes in 3 color choices. You can get it in black, in orange, and in silver, and it should be available in shops for 130 euros or US dollars for the tempered glass version, or $120 for the closed one. Let's look at the outside of this case. And even though this case doesn't look much like its older brother, it definitely shares a lot of similarities with the other Be Quiet cases. The quality of the case is undeniable. The frame as well as the panels are made entirely out of metal with just a handful of plastic details. The panels are insulated with an insane dampening mat. It is 10 millimeters thick and it's nothing like we've seen before. The question that comes to mind is if so much padding is actually needed, because most of the recent hardware is quiet as it is, and the Silent Bass 600 that had panels half as thick was able to produce a whisper quiet machine. The front is a combination of a simple panel with just a discrete Be Quiet logo on the bottom and ventilation openings in contrast color on both sides. It is easily opened by pushing it up to reveal the easily removable dust filter on the front as well as the dust filter on the bottom. There is no doors of any sorts as the case does not support any optical drives. On the top of the case, the power button is pretty hard to miss, and around it there is a small reset button, simple fan controller with 3 settings, audio connections, HDD LED, and 3 USB slots. In the back there is a few air vents. Now both air vents on top as well as on the front panel have what Be Quiet calls an angled air vent technology that is meant to dampen the noise even more. They say the angles keep the noise inside, but the question if that is the only thing they keep trapped inside, we'll get to when we talk about the performance. The right side panel is also made of metal, and the left side is either tempered glass like in this case, or you can get a closed version of the case with an insulated metal side instead. Both side panels are extremely easy to open with only one press of a button in the back. Now well done Be Quiet for making something that feels solid and is easy to work with. The inside of the case is pretty spacious and it can fit any system you have in mind, whether it's an air-cooled system or a custom-cooled system. Then they have this rubber covers for the cable management that are in contrast colors, and also the HDD caps that cover all the 3.5-inch slots that you are not using, making the whole inside of the case very clean looking and the cables in the back virtually invisible. The case comes with 2 Pure Wings 140mm fans, but they also support up to 3 140mm fans in the front, 3 in the top and 1 in the back, as well as the PSU shroud. If you plan on going with water cooling, both front and top support radiators up to 360mm in size. The top of the case has a removable fan tray that makes installing fans or radiators extremely easy. When it comes to CPU coolers, it can fit any cooler up to 185mm in size, and for the GPU there is 28 to 45 centimeters of space, depending on if there is a hard disk bracket blocking its way. Now let's talk about the storage possibilities of this case, which are pretty extreme. In the back there is 2 spots for 2.5-inch drives behind the motherboard, and there is also a hard drive cage in the bottom of the case that can fit either 2 3.5 or 2 2.5-inch drives. The cage is easily removable, making the installation a piece of cake, and it also includes special dampening rings that make the hard disk drives nice and quiet. There is also one optional hard disk cage included that you can mount inside of the case. It can fit 1 3.5-inch drive or 2 2.5-inch drives. Now you can also fill all the spots inside, but you need to purchase optional hard disk cages, and that would bring to a maximum of 7 3.5-inch drives or 14 2.5-inch drives, which is pretty much insane. I personally don't know anyone that uses that much storage, but if you're one of those people, please tell us in the comments below what you use it for. Okay, now we reached the tricky part, which is performance. And we have here an Intel i7 8700K with a Be Quiet Silent Loop 240 all-in-one cooler and a Asus Strix Vega 64 for the system here. So what we did is first we tested this case in idle just to get a feel of what the sound production and the temperatures are. and then we cranked up the CPU and the GPU to the full load and tested this case in 3 instances. First with the case being completely closed, second with the case being without the front panel, and the third with the case being without the front and the side panel. So in idle, we tested this case with its own fan controller that has a setting from 1 to 3. Now on 1, which is the lowest setting, the case was doing 35 decibels on 50 centimeters distance. On 3, it was doing 37. Now that is just making it from super quiet to still very quiet, but not so super quiet. In my opinion, the fan controller should have been something like silent and performance, when silent is actually the silent mode, and performance actually makes a bit of noise, but makes the case cool. Nevertheless, when testing this case on the full load, we used only the maximum setting of the fan controller. And when the case was completely open, the CPU was 60 degrees Celsius, the GPU was steady 74 degrees Celsius, and we measured 39 decibels at 50 centimeters distance, which means the hardware that we're using is actually pretty quiet to begin with. Now with the side panel back on, the CPU temperature went up to 68.8 degrees Celsius. The GPU was still doing steady 74 degrees, but it was compensating with fan speed. And because of that, we measured an increase in sound production, and it was doing now 41 decibels at 50 centimeters distance. When we put the front panel back on as well, and making the case completely closed, this is really fun. So the CPU first went up to 80 degrees Celsius within minutes, and some cores were even peaking to 90 degrees, so I actually stopped the test to not ruin any of the hardware here. And the GPU was doing still 74 degrees, but the fans of the GPU were working so hard, the case was actually loud. It was doing 43.5 decibels at 50 centimeters distance. So making this be quiet case not so quiet. One cannot ignore the irony, right? Now, whether it's the angled vents technology or the thick side panels or both, the results of this case were pretty disappointing. So we decided to retest it with a GPU that consumes less power and that generates less heat. And we took the Asus GTX 1080 and retested the whole case. Now with the Asus GTX 1080, the CPU was 72 degrees Celsius, the GPU was 70 degrees Celsius, nice and steady and constant, which is a great result, but it was still pretty loud. It was doing 42.5 decibels at 50 centimeters distance. That makes us conclude that even though they spent all this new technology to make this case super quiet, they left this case with poor airflow. Now, if you put more fans in, if you maybe use a air cooler that's pushing the air outside, if you don't use the all-in-one that's blocking the vents and making all the hot air circulate, or whatever different, the results would probably be slightly different. But with this configuration, which is pretty still a normal configuration, the results are not good enough. Now, if you're using a lot of mechanical hard drives that are making a lot of noise, with a simple system inside, just the cut in sound production would be worth it. The Be Quiet 601 is a beautiful mid-tower case. It has so much potential. It has fantastic build quality. The ideas they have in here are pretty innovative, but the result is just not quite there yet. Now, if you're using just a mid-range system, this case is going to be just enough. But if you want to use a high-powered system that creates a lot of heat and it needs a lot of airflow, you're going to be left short-handed. So if you have any ideas of how we can improve our results, please tell us in the comments below. And I really hope that this feedback and this experience is going to help Be Quiet make their product even better. That's it for today. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this review. Give us a like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye!